faithfully delivering value and interpreting great books from around the world. Hello, this is Sally's Book Talk. Today's book for you is Pour Your Heart Into It. It has a subtitle, How Starbucks Built a Company One Cup at a Time. Starbucks is the world's largest coffee chain and coffee retailer. In 2019, it ranked 40th in the world's top 500 brands. In August 2020, Starbucks debuted on the Fortune Global 500, ranking second in the food service industry sublist. In China, Starbucks has opened over 4,400 stores in 180 cities, making it Starbucks' largest overseas market. And holding a cup of Starbucks has become a standard accessory for many white-collar workers and fashion influencers. Speaking of Starbucks, we have to mention Howard Schultz, the former chairman, who nurtured Starbucks into what it is today. But many don't know that the real founders of Starbucks aren't Howard Schultz, but three Seattle bohemians: Jerry Baldwin, a literature student; Gordon Boker, a writer; and Zev Siegel, a history teacher. Back then, Starbucks didn't sell coffee drinks, only coffee beans. As for Howard Schultz, he was an employee at Starbucks, with the three founders as his bosses. So, how did Starbucks transform from a coffee bean shop into the world's largest coffee company? And how did Howard Schultz grow from an employee to a globally renowned entrepreneur? Pour Your Heart Into It will tell you the answer. The book tells the history of Starbucks from 1971 to 1997, and one of the authors is Howard Schultz, who personally narrates the business legend he built. Undoubtedly, he offers the deepest insights into its essence. At the same time, the book is Schultz's autobiography, where he tells how a kid from subsidized housing in New York achieved his dreams and fought his way to becoming a world-class entrepreneur. Schultz hopes this book will inspire people to pursue their own dreams. In his words, don't let the possibility of failure scare you, because it doesn't scare a kid who grew up in subsidized housing. The other author of the book is Dory Jones Yang, a journalist and writer who served as the regional editor for Business Week in New York and Seattle. Next, I'll divide it into three parts to tell you the main content of the book. Part 1 tells you about Schultz's upbringing and how he met Starbucks. Part 2 tells you about Schultz taking over Starbucks, followed by Starbucks' rapid development. Part 3 tells you how Starbucks moved towards internationalization after going public. First, Part 1, Schultz's meeting with Starbucks. Schultz was born in 1952 into a Jewish working-class family in New York's slums and grew up in subsidized housing in Brooklyn. Brooklyn was once the area with the highest crime rate in the U.S., seen by some as synonymous with chaos, filth, and sin. Schultz's father was a blue-collar worker, doing jobs like truck driving and factory work, and the family's financial situation was always strained. One year, his father was injured at work with no income, no health insurance, and no workers' compensation. His father, with a cast on his foot, lying on the couch in destitution, deeply hurt Schultz. He believed that work should bring dignity, and if he ever succeeded, he would never let others fall into such a state. This idea of Schultz's greatly influenced Starbucks' later values. Schultz attended public schools in his community, had average grades, but he had athletic talent, excelled in various sports, was competitive, and deeply committed to things he loved. During his high school years, two incidents greatly affected Schultz. The first was that he made the school football team, but his family couldn't afford to buy the uniform, which almost broke Schultz. He privately borrowed money from a friend to resolve the issue. He hid the uniform and didn't tell his parents until they could afford it. Another time, he asked out a girl from another part of New York, and her father interrogated him. When he learned that Schultz lived in subsidized housing in Brooklyn, he immediately showed a look of disdain. This greatly hurt Schultz's self-esteem. For a time, he was ashamed of growing up in Brooklyn and even hid this part of his upbringing from others. The first turning point in Schultz's life was when Northern Michigan University offered him a scholarship to play on the football team, giving him the opportunity to attend college. But it was, although his college grades were average, graduating with a diploma gave Schultz the confidence to dare to dream. After graduation, Schultz returned to New York and joined Xerox's marketing department. At Xerox, he received the best sales training in America. The curriculum included marketing knowledge, sales techniques, and presentation skills. Leveraging his Xerox sales experience, Schultz later became head of the U.S. division for a Swedish home goods company, earning a high salary of $75,000 per year. He bought an apartment in Manhattan, New York, and had his own home just years after college graduation. However, in 1981, while working at the Swedish company, Schultz noticed one company ordering a large quantity of coffee grinders. This puzzled him because Americans typically used percolators or drip coffee makers at the time, so he flew there specifically to investigate. That company was Starbucks in Seattle. Starbucks was a small coffee bean retailer founded in 1971 by three coffee enthusiasts. When Schultz visited, Starbucks had only 4 stores, importing premium beans from South America and roasting them in-house. They discovered that darker roasted beans released more flavor. This dark roast, ground into powder, produced exceptionally aromatic coffee, completely different from instant coffee. Starbucks bought grinders to brew fresh coffee in store for customers. When Schultz tasted it, he was instantly captivated by its rich aroma. And this! He felt he'd been drinking coffee water before. At the time, most Americans drink bland instant coffee, unaware of real coffee's potential. But Starbucks ignited an unprecedented passion in him. He wanted to join Starbucks and grow it into something significant. He spent a year convincing Starbucks' owners to hire him. Schultz abandoned his high-paying New York job and moved his family to Seattle. He became Starbucks' marketing and retail manager, acquiring a minority stake in the company. Back then, Starbucks had only 5 stores. After joining, Schultz initially continued selling coffee beans, but a trip to Italy inspired his idea for coffee shops. In Italy, Schultz discovered ubiquitous cafes serving fresh espresso with romantic atmospheres, rich aromas, and baristas building personal connections. Cafes served as social hubs. Back then, such Italian-style coffee shops were only commonly found in Italian-American neighborhoods across the U.S. Schultz felt a lightning bolt of inspiration. He wanted to replicate Italian fresh-ground coffee shops across America. Starbucks had the natural advantage for this since it already dealt with premium coffee beans. Because I was so good with roaster. Schultz's inspiration coincided with the specialty coffee movement, where people began valuing coffee taste and sophistication. Starbucks caught this historical wave, but its major shareholders held conservative views and weren't interested in selling prepared coffee drinks in stores. So when I called it down, end of the nights, this fundamental philosophical divide forced Schultz to leave Starbucks. In 1985, Schultz invested and founded a coffee shop called Il Giornale, based on his vision. In 1987, a turning point came for Starbucks. An unsuccessful business acquisition impacted Starbucks operations, leading shareholders to decide to sell the company. Schultz then gathered investors and bought Starbucks. It was his now. He abandoned the Il Giornale brand, merging both operations under the Starbucks name. That year, at 35, Schultz could finally pursue his vision without constraints. That concludes part 1. Schultz seized 3 pivotal opportunities. First, gaining access to college education. Second, making his mark in sales. Third, discovering Starbucks and seizing the chance to acquire it. Now let's move to part 2. After Schultz took charge, Starbucks grew rapidly. Just how influential did it become under his leadership? Simply put, Starbucks' green mermaid logo became synonymous with American lifestyle, transforming how Americans consumed coffee. When Schultz took over in 1987, including Il Giornale, there were 9 stores. Just 4 years later, in 1991, Starbucks had over 100 locations with $57 million in sales. In 1992, Starbucks successfully went public on NASDAQ. Starbucks' rapid success stemmed from three key factors. First, redefining the customer coffee experience. Second, achieving cross-regional chain operations. Third, establishing a unique internal corporate culture. First, let's explore how Starbucks redefined the coffee experience.
Product-wise, Starbucks elevated coffee to an artisanal level, teaching people to enjoy authentic Italian-style fresh ground coffee.
As mentioned earlier, in the 1970s, most Americans drank instant coffee made from low-quality beans with monotonous flavor. Starbucks coffee used premium beans, freshly ground and brewed, offering vastly superior taste to instant coffee, quickly winning customer favor.
For example, Starbucks offered Italian coffee, like lattes, espresso, prepared with steamed milk.
Many customers had never heard of it before, but immediately fell in love after trying Starbucks. Beyond Italian coffee, they gradually diversified products, like introducing non-fat milk lattes and cappuccinos per customer requests, creating a strong sense of ritual. Baristas crafted coffee with skillful, fluid motions while engaging in friendly chats, enhancing the customer experience.
Additionally, Starbucks cultivated a relaxed, welcoming atmosphere, attracting customers to meet friends there.
Starbucks inadvertently became people's third place for social interaction, a social venue beyond work and home. The third place concept was proposed by American sociologist Ray Oldenburg. His core theory is that people need informal public spaces to unwind from work and family pressures for social activities like gatherings.
Starbucks' ambiance inadvertently fulfilled this need for a third place.
Next, let's discuss how Starbucks achieved expansion through cross-regional chain operations. Starbucks primarily solved four major challenges. First, solving the coffee bean distribution issue. This was key to transforming Starbucks' raw material advantage into chain operations. Fresh beans would lose distinct flavor and quality during extended transportation. Starbucks solved logistics with vacuum packaging, eliminating need for city-specific roasting facilities, enabling rapid nationwide expansion. Second, addressing expansion funding needs. Before going public, Starbucks raised over $36 million through 4 funding rounds. Despite losses during 1987 to 1989 from aggressive expansion, Starbucks turned profitable by 1990 with 80% annual returns, maintaining investor confidence. Third, Starbucks primarily opens company-owned stores to ensure consistent coffee quality. To guarantee quality, Schultz insisted early on operating only company-owned stores, not franchising. Franchising means having others operate the stores. Starbucks collects management fees for franchising, while company-owned means Starbucks runs them itself. Although after 1991, Starbucks had franchise stores, even now it still focuses mainly on company-owned operations. Fourth, solving the issue of brand influence. For a chain coffee shop to establish itself in a city or region, it must have its own unique brand influence. Starbucks' approach was to leverage central cities as hubs, rapidly opening chain stores to capture the market. For example, in 1991, preparing to enter California. When entering this large market, they chose Los Angeles as the first city because LA leads trends in fashion, sports, etc., radiating culture across California with a large population open to quality, innovative food. Starbucks' store openings in LA were hugely successful, with the Los Angeles Times calling it the best coffee in America. Naturally, with LA's demonstration effect as a central city, opening stores in other California cities became much easier. When acquiring Starbucks in 1987, Schultz promised investors to open 125 new stores within 5 years. In reality, by 1992, they had opened over 150 new stores, far exceeding the target. If rebuilding the customer coffee experience and quickly capturing the market were Starbucks' external strategies, then establishing a unique corporate culture was its internal engine for rapid growth. And Among these, Schultz believes the most important is establishing a people-oriented philosophy known as partner culture, which he is especially proud of as a core value. Partner culture has three main characteristics. First, at a time when American companies were generally maximizing shareholder profits, Starbucks went against the grain by providing comprehensive health insurance to all employees, including part-timers and their families, starting in 1988. And Schultz said they were the only private company doing this, and later the only public company. In 1994, Schultz was invited to the White House for a one-on-one meeting with then-President Clinton because of Starbucks' company-wide health insurance plan. He even spotted a Starbucks mermaid cup on the U.S. president's desk. Second, in 1991, Schultz convinced the board to launch the innovative Beanstalk Plan, granting company shares to every employee. This was unprecedented in the retail industry, where employee benefits were typically minimal. Simultaneously, Starbucks stopped using the term employee and called everyone partners, fostering mutual respect and trust. Third, enabling every employee to participate fully in company management. For example, when drafting the mission statement, Starbucks sought input from every employee. In daily operations, employees could criticize any behavior contradicting Starbucks' mission. Suggestions included feedback channels, like comment cards, to management for workplace concerns. This boosted employee engagement and accountability, making the partner culture remarkably effective. Employees' passion ignited, bringing genuine warmth to customer interactions. Meanwhile, turnover plummeted, saving Starbucks significant training costs. The deeper origin of partner culture traces back to Schultz's lingering pain over his father's lack of societal respect. Thus, he believed inspiring all employees, including blue-collar workers, with respect and confidence was leadership's fundamental duty. June 26, 1992, was what Schultz called the happiest day of his career.
That day, Starbucks went public on NASDAQ.
Its stock surged against market trends, reaching a $273 million valuation. Just 5 years prior, he'd bought Starbucks for under $4 million. Store count grew from 9 at acquisition to over 160 by 1992, becoming a national coffee chain. At 40, Schultz graced the cover of Fortune magazine. Fortune proclaimed, "Howard Schultz's Starbucks turned coffee beans into gold." That concludes part 2. After Schultz took charge, Starbucks transformed into a national chain through rapid expansion and a successful IPO. Finally, we'll cover part 3. From post-IPO to 1997, Starbucks embarked on international expansion. Although Starbucks went public, Schultz wasn't satisfied. His bigger goal was to build the world's most respected coffee brand and become the largest global coffee chain. And so, how did Starbucks move towards becoming an international enterprise? This is mainly reflected in 3 aspects. First, strengthening brand management. Second, maintaining product innovation. Third, improving management standards. Now, let's interpret each one specifically. First, let's talk about strengthening brand management. According to Schultz, in the early days of Starbucks, they never deliberately tried to build a brand, but they inadvertently led a fashion brand trend. Every element in Starbucks stores is meticulously designed. What customers smell, see, hear, touch, and taste all help deepen the brand image. For example, Starbucks partners, meaning baristas, cannot wear perfume or cologne to avoid interfering with customers enjoying the pure coffee aroma. During the first decade of rapid expansion, Starbucks spent less than $10 million on advertising, preferring to invest in employee training. For instance, the training cost per new employee could reach $3,000 per year. In the early days, Starbucks's brand ambassadors were the baristas themselves, whose word of mouth was more effective than advertising. But when Starbucks turned its sights to the international market, word of mouth alone wasn't enough. Starbucks needed to transform its product into a cultural symbol. Schultz spent 18 months selecting the right professionals to upgrade the Starbucks brand. focusing on planning a series of advertisements. For example, the 1996 summer campaign for ice cream and frappuccino made coffee seem cool, presenting a surprisingly smart and alternative image. Second, Starbucks has strong momentum in product innovation.
For instance, Starbucks invested millions of dollars in equipment to establish an advanced top-tier research center and experimental factory for testing and extracting coffee essences for product innovation.
At the same time, they partnered with major international companies like PepsiCo and Dreyer's Ice Cream to launch collaborative products. For example, Starbucks developed bottled coffee drinks like Frappuccino, sold through PepsiCo's distribution channels, resulting in enthusiastic market response and product shortages. Now, the collaboration with Dreyer's involved adding coffee essence developed by Starbucks into ice cream, and after launch, sales quickly surpassed Haagen-Dazs, the top ice cream brand in the US. These two collaborative products became Starbucks' most profitable and fastest-growing offerings. The collaborations with global giants triggered Starbucks' second business model transformation, breaking products beyond store walls into broader channels, like supermarkets.
For example, partner PepsiCo had millions of outlets, rapidly expanding Starbucks' off-premise sales channels after collaboration.
Third, Starbucks continuously improved management after crises, as its growth wasn't always smooth. For instance, the 1987 Chicago expansion failed due to poor location choices, forcing store closures.
In 1995 Christmas, blizzards forced closures in multiple regions, creating significant business pressure.
Starbucks' most severe crisis was the 1994 coffee bean price surge. That June, severe frost in Brazil caused raw coffee bean prices to gradually increase by 330%. As a public company with 350 stores, Starbucks faced multiple operational pressures. Starbucks confronted a tough decision: buy expensive beans anticipating further hikes, or wait hoping for price drops. After painful deliberation, they bulk purchased at peak prices, only to see prices soon plummet. This overpriced inventory sat in warehouses, taking Starbucks 2 full years to absorb. The crisis drove deep back-end improvements: immediate logistics upgrades, operational efficiencies in packaging, assembly, roasting, and cost savings in storage, production.
By 1997, when bean prices doubled again, Starbucks weathered the storm methodically.
Because they developed superior cost control capabilities.
That concludes Part 3. Post-IPO, Starbucks enhanced brand management, sustained product innovation, grew rapidly through crisis response, advancing toward global enterprise status. Today, Starbucks continues rapid expansion while facing rising competitors. For example, UK's Costa Coffee and China Resources Pacific Coffee each offer distinct characteristics. Competition among chain coffee retailers is intensifying. In 2000, Schultz stepped down as CEO, handing Starbucks to founding partner Orrin Smith. He remained chairman, but always stepped forward during crises. In 2008, amid financial crisis and plunging performance, Schultz returned. He slowed U.S. growth and prioritized emerging markets. This led Starbucks back to rapid growth. In 2017, Schultz resigned again as CEO, stepping back from daily operations. By then, Starbucks stores grew from 16,000 in 2008 to 30,000, reaching new global scale. In April 2018, a racial incident at a Philadelphia store sparked public outrage. As chairman, Schultz took decisive action, closing stores temporarily. He implemented racial bias training for staff, again steering through crisis. Every time Schultz returned, he led Starbucks through adversity, forever its soul. Back in 1999, when planning Beijing stores, even Americans doubted Chinese would embrace coffee over tea. Today, China is Starbucks' biggest growth engine. It's a global business model. Even Jack Ma publicly learns from it. To Jack Ma, Starbucks sells not coffee but new services, experiences, and lifestyles, making coffee a way of life. Schultz thinks unconventionally, quoting Irish playwright Shaw. Some see what is and ask why. I dream what never was and ask why not.
Why not?
That concludes our interpretation of Pour Your Heart Into It. Reading notes are below. Until next time.